Hello citizens, and thank you for joining me on the first of many episodes of the Archivist logs. In this series, I explain the lore of the Star Citizen universe so we can better understand our place in this galaxy. Before we begin, I'd like to thank my subscribers and extend a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Your contributions are what allow me to keep this channel going. As always, if you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. These take a lot of work to make, and I really appreciate your support. Now let's get into it. To get started with understanding the lore of the Star Citizen universe, we should begin with the location we can currently explore inside of the live game, the Stanton System. Discovered around 100 years ago by the United Earth Empire, or UEE, the Stanton System consists of a single yellow dwarf star orbited by 4 planets and a large, dense asteroid belt. All 4 of these planets also fit into what is called the green zone, or area around a star that provides appropriate heat and light for life to exist in atmosphere. Explorers had also found jump points connecting 3 different star systems to Stanton, these being Pyro, Terra, and Magnus. Being located this close to major import-export locations, the UEE immediately decided to test out a new idea: selling these worlds each to a different corporate entity. This was such a radical idea and unique opportunity that these 4 worlds are in fact the only privately owned planets in the entirety of the Empire. Almost as quickly as the worlds were put up for sale, these buyers were asking where to sign the check and how soon they could begin construction operations. These companies were so shameless in their acquisition of these planets that they named each after their own respective brand names: Hurston, Crusader, ArcCorp, and Microtech. Now I can already hear you saying, but wait, in game right now, I see Delamar, aren't there 5 planets? Well, no. Delamar is actually from a different star system and has only been included in the persistent universe so that illegal players can have a lawless haven and so they can test out some of the planet tech during 3.0. This is expected to be removed in the near future, and I'll be covering the system it belongs to in a different video. In exchange for ownership of these planets, they were prohibited from selecting Senate representatives and forced to agree to upholding UEE common law. All security in this system is provided by either the local corporate security forces or the Advocacy, a quasi-police force that patrols the UEE independently of the Navy, but also enforces common law. They're basically UEE-sanctioned vigilante groups. Now, starting closest to the sun, we have Hurston, owned by the industrial megacorp Hurston Dynamics. This super-Earth is orbited by 4 different moons: Aberdeen, Ariel, Ida, and Magda. As the closest planet to the sun, Hurston's moons experience some very high temperatures that require protective equipment for extended exposure, but are also incredibly rich in ore and other mineable materials. Hurston itself has a natural climate that is very close to that of Earth, complete with oceans, savannas, a breathable atmosphere, and comfortable surface temperatures. The reason I say natural climate, unfortunately, is because the Hurston Dynamics Corporation has all but destroyed the entire biosphere. Almost every native life form has been killed as a result of the extensive mining processes and the hazardous waste left behind from their special weapons manufacturing. What was once a beautiful and vibrant world is now largely wastelands and deserts, waylaid by decades of unchecked industrial labors. If you're not crossing a vast desert-like badland, you're probably in one of the numerous fields of scrap and detritus, ranging from wrecked ships to piles of long-abandoned garbage and junk metal. Some areas of the planet have been ravaged so thoroughly by rampant manufacturing that the planet has begun to erupt acid and harmful volatile materials in what the artists themselves describe as the planet fighting back. If you look closely though, you can still find savannas of healthy tree growth, thick underbrush, and forestry so lush that it's hard to navigate in a hoverbike. With the history of Hurston Dynamics, however, this doesn't really lead me to believe that these sparse regions have much hope in the future. Hurston Dynamics is one of the largest producers and distributors of a variety of military and material components, as well as the sole producer of the attrition and dominance ship weapons. When considering what the decision-making process for Hurston's planning department is, You can boil it down to one simple ideology. War is good for business. Not only are they solely concerned with maintaining their status as one of the key suppliers to the UEE military, but their family is a dynasty where CEO is really king. With a long and bloody history that the Hurston family claims to trace back to the Dark Ages, it is no wonder that they gallivant around like feudal lords. To work for Hurston Dynamics and live in Lorville is to live a life of wage slavery and desperation. Work conditions are so poor in the mines on Hurston that most laborers don't even survive a single conscription tour. There are even rumors that the company is knowingly participating in slavery to work some parts of the mines since they run their own security forces. This security personnel is such an omnipresent force in Lorville that you can't turn a corner without seeing at least 3 security guards, armed to the teeth and waiting to brutalize a citizen who steps out of line. Even if you find yourself with no reason to be hassled by the corporate thugs, you won't have much luck breathing easy. With industry leaving the planet's atmosphere loaded with dust and pollutants, the residents are often urged by the local safety board, however trustworthy they might be, to wear these air filtering masks while outside of their habitation blocks, or risk breathing soot and smog. That is, unless you live in the office park area of Lorville. These locations are kept to the highest of standards so that the upper class can constantly be reminded of their superior status as they get to thoroughly enjoy their life. As for travel, miners and traders still frequent Hurston and its moons thanks to the large supply of metals and gases available on these natural satellites. Most just make sure that they're staying on the right side of the law, as the moon Aberdeen is home to one of the last places you'll ever want to visit, Klesher Rehabilitation Facility, or Klesher Prison as the locals call it. Surrounded by an endless expanse of moon surface and an incredibly thick and toxic atmosphere, escaping from Klesher Prison is typically not something that ends up on the list of possibilities. Luckily for those locked up here, this fully automatic prison grants you many ways that you can leave. And yes, I said fully automatic prison. Klesher basically uses this as a way to make money off of those that they've locked up, since all you really need to do to earn a lighter sentence or even your freedom, depending how long you're meant to stay there, is work in the mines. Did you murder somebody? Get caught red-handed by security personnel? No problem. Our state-of-the-art rehabilitation facility will get you bringing in profit, correcting the errors of your behavior in no time. As one can imagine, this despotic system leads to a lot of revolutionary groups and anti-government activities taking place all over Hurston proper. With the inevitable collapse of the ecosystem, revolutionary violence, space piracy, and a massive class divide, the future of the Hurston system does not look that bright. Moving farther out from the star, we find the next planet in the solar system, Crusader. Crusader is a low-mass gas giant orbited by 3 moons, Salin, Daymar, and Yella. Thanks to the presence of breathable air in the upper atmosphere, Crusader is home to one of the most futuristic styles of city building in the verse, a floating cloud city, Orison. You see, Crusader Industries is a large-scale shipbuilder that not only provides the UEE with quality crafts for war, but it also has a very large civilian market, and the lower gravity environment of the atmosphere and the habitable zone in Crusader is ideal for building massive ships with ease and efficiency. Getting yourself a living quarters here may not be the cheapest, but when compared to Hurston Dynamics, Crusader is a paradise. Though originally constructed by the UEE Navy and later sold off to be used as a ship manufacturing hub, Crusader Industries wanted Orison to be known as a beautiful tourist destination. To improve and preserve the scenic nature of these high-atmosphere platforms, the employees' habitation and all new structures were constructed in a way that provided picturesque vistas, quality standards of living, and large commercial districts. The climate is very pleasant, the air is clean and free of all the industrial pollutants that poison places like Hurston. Even the shipyards are awe-inspiring, holding massive feats of human engineering aloft mid-construction for tourists to stare at and wonder from the shade of beautiful pink trees. Crusader's CEO has been quoted as saying, "I find that living in heaven suits me." Truly, Orison is a city of the future in many ways. Don't let this fool you into thinking that the Crusader area is safe, as Crusader Industries has been known to fudge their crime stats from time to time to make sure that it's more appealing for tourists. Crusader is also home to easily the most dangerous station in Stanton, Grimhex. Located in the asteroid belt around Yela and originally known as the Green Imperial Housing Exchange, this former mining facility has been abandoned to pirates and criminals, a result of mining operations becoming too expensive to maintain for such a small company. You see, housing exchanges are incredibly cheap and easy to build living quarters that are frequently constructed across the verse. This of course means that they are often cramped and designed with comfort and long-term habitability as an afterthought, though most who end up staying long-term in a place like this probably aren't the kind to raise complaints. With valuable mining materials still available in this area, some people do still risk the danger for the opportunity to make themselves a good haul before pirates can find and extort them. More valuable to some than even the rarest of mining materials, you can find drug labs dotting the surface of Yela. There was a time in this system that the drug runners were lining up and openly slaughtering each other over control of these drug labs, for what felt like months and even years to people living in this area. This conflict was known as the Junktown Wars. And although you can still catch the occasional smuggler running drugs from these labs to who knows where around the verse, Grimhex and Yela's outwardly aggressive activity has somewhat waned since those days, and they take in far less illegal cargo than they used to. The Crusader system is also home to a few racing circuits that are available for those wanting to test their skills in competition. Grimhex features a scenic viewing platform for the races taking place in the asteroid field surrounding the pirate station. Bookies take bets and dish out credits to those with the foresight to call the race accurately, drawing in citizens from every walk of life. You also have the ground vehicle races brought to you by the Daymar Rally, a community-driven event that I will link in the description below. There are a lot of open and free events available to anybody who is looking to just meet up and romp around a desert moon with like-minded individuals. No matter what you're looking for, whether it's a beautiful tourist trip with your family or abandoning it all to fall into a gang and live out of the eyes of the law, Crusader has it. Just watch out for those out there calling themselves the Nine Tails. Beyond Crusader's orbit, before you reach the third planet in the Stanton System, you will find the Erin's Halo asteroid belt. This asteroid belt is so dense and loaded with materials that it creates massive problems for people trying to travel through with their quantum drives. To remedy this, ArcCorp constructed gateways that people could use to travel through this asteroid belt safely. Naturally, ArcCorp has profited off of this. As of this time, there is not much information available for the Erin's Halo, unfortunately. We will be touching on this again at a later date. In the meantime, let's move on. Beyond the asteroid belt known as the Erin's Halo, you will find a planet covered entirely in sprawling cityscape and endless skyscrapers. Stanton 3, or ArcCorp. ArcCorp is the most populated planet in the Stanton System, a super-Earth surrounded by two moons, Walla and Lyria. ArcCorp is also home to an environment and atmosphere that is almost identical to that of Earth, which was the intended goal of ArcCorp's terraforming operations. In fact, ArcCorp is not only the most industrialized world in all of human space, but the entire planet was terraformed, zoned, and built up to this impressive status within just 80 years of the world's purchase from the UEE. As for natural life on ArcCorp, it's been all but extinguished entirely. Other than the house pets and vermin crawling through the nooks and crannies of the unending city sprawl, every animal native to the planet has been pushed out in favor of terraforming and construction operations. In fact, there is so little room left to build in ArcCorp that the only direction to go anymore is up, with new buildings constantly being constructed on top of each other. The reason for this rampant growth and industrialization in ArcCorp is largely the company's somewhat recent claim to fame. You see, ArcCorp was originally founded as a deep space exploration organization, with just one lowly spacecraft and 4 friends. After a while of trying their luck, they realized they were better off going the mining route for a while to see how that panned out. And despite being outside of their original vision for the company, this was so profitable that they renamed themselves and ArcCorp Mining Consortium was born. Within a few hundred years, they had moved on from just mining and selling out mineral rights to mapping out where settlers could create settlements and selling those rights instead. Through the years leading up to Stanton III's sale to ArcCorp, they had made the acquisition of both the BCK terraforming group and the engine manufacturer Novalite. Now, this led to the bread and butter of what is now ArcCorp, fusion engine manufacturing. Novalite was on the verge of releasing a new series of upgraded fusion engines, but they had a problem where they lacked the manufacturing capabilities to really put it out on the scale they needed. Immediately after finding this information out, ArcCorp swooped in, and within 2 financial quarters, they had made the engines profitable. Within 5 years, they were the #1 choice for ships larger than 100 meters. ArcCorp's fusion engines are now considered the standard upon which all other designs are made, and the homeworld is dotted with factories as a result. ArcCorp will let literally anyone build an office in their cities as long as they have the credits, which has led to a heavily exploited worker class that still does live with fairly high levels of social mobility and freedom. Workers here aren't treated to the picturesque scenery and top quality habitation of Hurston in the Crusader System, but they're also not wage slaves to their corporate overlords like the denizens of Lorville. This, coupled with the endless city sprawl and overpopulation, leads to a massive amount of organized crime and illegal activity. Wandering down the wrong back alley here could be met with a cold piece of steel in your kidney, or a new career path with the only way out being in a box. Far on the edges of the green zone is the final world on our journey, Microtech. A stark contrast to the tyrannical reign of the Hurston family and the endless cyberpunk sprawl of ArcCorp, Microtech is a far more calm place to live. Surrounded by 3 icy moons, Clio, Calliope, and Euterpe, Microtech is now home to the corporation of the same name, manufacturer of the widely used Mobiglass, the iPhone of Star Citizen. Originally meant to be terraformed with the goal of creating an atmosphere that would have been incredibly close to that of Earth's, there was some sort of an engineering accident in the process that left the planet covered in an incredibly dense cloud layer. This led to an atmospheric condition where the clouds would reflect a majority of the light which Stanton shed upon the surface, freezing over a large portion of the planet. And though it is mostly covered in ice and constantly bombarded by intense blizzards, there are locations scattered around where you can find beautiful flowers and lush fields of grass. Microtech also does a great job of holding strict control over their property rights, which has led to very little construction on the world, outside of the city of New Babbage and the few data centers and bunkers that dot the surface. If you were to suspend all skepticism and cynicism, you wouldn't be mistaken for believing that New Babbage is a sheltered utopia, a shining gem in the harsh frozen rock that surrounds it. The people who live here experience such a high level of wealth and prosperity due to the popularity of Mobiglass and other computing products. Their every material need can be met at a moment's notice. No, in order to actually discover the problem within the society in New Babbage, you would need to spend an extended amount of time there. Due to the amount of wealth a typical resident would need to just afford their housing, there tends to be very little movement when it comes to people migrating to and from Microtech. This leads to many people who live at Microtech not only working jobs that are very demanding in terms of work hours, but also living in a form of technocratic isolation, which leads to a lot of social anxiety. Even if you wanted to go outside and engage in some fun group activities, you can't. The climate is far too cold to spend time outside of the habitats without environmental protection, And this just compounds the feeling that you really can't get out and breathe the air. Though this is a far better arrangement than most of the inhabitants of the Stanton System. The tragedy of Microtech is their technological hubris. Think of it like cabin fever in Silicon Valley. With Microtech proper focusing on data storage and computer manufacturing, the moons are largely used as research bases, with some scattered mining operations. Most of the activity on these moons is conducted in a way that either improves the quality of Microtech's products or provides a source of raw materials for them. Shuban Mining and Rayari Research are the largest benefactors in this planetary system, but there is also a world of drug labs popping up on these moons and taking advantage of the overabundance of medical and technical supplies. Not to mention that local populace that is just overworked and extremely anxious. I can't say I really blame them for craving any form of escapism or release. The smugglers in this system do seem to stick to their drug trade and keep it quiet, as bounty hunting and advocacy activity is very low this far out. Microtech also orbits relatively close to 2 of the 3 jump points, which allows access into and out of this system. Which brings us to our final topic, the jump points. Starting on the far edge of the Stanton System, you find the first of the 2 large jump points, leading to the Magnus System. Magnus was once a thriving Navy shipyard, but after the UEE moved operations to the Killian System, crime and economic depression quickly gripped this area. Recently, the ship manufacturer Drake Interplanetary has moved in, and order has begun to return, but gangs still run rampant and occasionally travel into Stanton from the Magnus jump. The next large jump point we have is the Terra system. Closer to Microtech's orbit, and leading to one of the most important and controversial systems in the verse, Terra is a larger and more habitable super-Earth than our Earth in the Sol system. And there are factions regularly pushing for Terra to be recognized as the new seat of the UEE Empire. We will dig deeper into this story at another point, but for now, Terra's proximity to Stanton is largely responsible for the strong export and import capabilities of this region. The third and final jump point in system leads to Pyro. Unclaimed by the UEE and ravaged by a dying star, Pyro is home to many pirates and criminals, and is responsible for supporting the thriving black market that runs throughout this region of space. Long abandoned by even the greediest of corporate interests, the Pyro system is incredibly dangerous and expected to be coming to the persistent universe sometime in 2021. And that covers the current lore available for the Stanton system. There was recently some really extensive work done on this lore, so it did take quite a while for me to pick through all of the sources and find the most credible information that I could for this video. Do you think I missed something important, or you want to add to this lore discussion? Go ahead and speak up in the comments below. If you did like this and made it this far, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you know when I post my next video. I also want to take this time to thank my patrons over on Patreon. You guys help me keep the lights on so this channel is possible. Looking to join the community on Discord, Twitch, or want to contribute on my Patreon? Links are all in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. This concludes the Archivist Log.